Hi guys, my name is Erin Slagle and I'm from Custer County. I'm also serving as the Oklahoma 4-H reporter this year. So while in quarantine, I decided to work on a service project to help out my local community. As you probably know, medical services are running low on things like facial masks. So I decided to sew some myself to donate to nursing homes and hospice services. So these are super easy to make, and all you need is a 1/4-inch elastic, a lightweight fusible interfacing, and a piece of cotton fabric. So first, you're going to cut out your piece of cotton fabric 12 by 9 inches, and then you're going to cut out a piece of interfacing the same size, 12 by 9 inches. After you cut out your fabric and your interfacing, you're going to attach your interfacing to your fabric. So to do that, you're going to put the wrong side of the fabric facing up, and then you're going to take the interfacing and put the fusible side, or the rough side, down on top of the fabric and line it up. Then once you do that, you're going to take a damp cloth, and I'm just using an old pillowcase and a spray bottle, and you're going to dampen that cloth. And once you do that, you're going to lay that on top of the fabric. And then you're going to take a hot iron and iron on your interfacing. And you just let it sit there for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then you're going to keep moving it around until your interfacing is fused to your fabric. And you might want to ask for a parent's help when you're doing this, as the iron is very hot. And then once I do that, I'm just going to kind of iron over it to make sure I got all the corners. And then you'll remove the cloth and your interfacing is fused on. After we've fused the interfacing to the fabric, as you can see here, we're going to take the fabric and we're going to fold it in half to where the right side of the fabric is on the inside. And what we're going to do next is we're going to sew along this side where it's open. And later, we're going to need to turn this right side out again. So we're actually going to leave a gap in the middle of this line. And it's going to be about 2 to 3 inches. So from about right there to right here. So just about like that. And that'll leave you enough room to turn it right side out. And so when you sew this, and you get to this middle part, you're gonna wanna make sure that you back stitch really well. Otherwise it'll start to come apart and it'll make it harder to sew shut later on. So I'm gonna begin sewing with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. The next step is to attach the elastic. So to do that, I've cut 2 6.5-inch strips of the 1/4-inch elastic. And I'm going to pin it to my fabric. And to do that, you're just going to make sure that it's flat, and you're going to stick it inside like that with just a little bit hanging out. And you're going to pin it in there, just like that. And so then you're going to want to make sure that your elastic is flat on the inside. And so you're going to bring it down and turn it in like that. And this part can get a little bit tricky sometimes, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Now that I've pinned the elastic in place on both sides, I'm going to sew over it with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Now when you do this, you're going to want to make sure that you're not sewing over the elastic in the middle, just over where the pins are. And you're going to want to back stitch several times to make sure it stays secure. Now that you've sewn both sides shut, you're going to turn this right side out. And this is where you use the opening that you left earlier. And after you're done doing that, we're going to iron it to smooth it out and pin the opening back shut, and then we're going to sew it shut again. So you'll have something looking like this. I'm going to iron over it really quickly. And then we're going to pin it shut. So now that we've turned this inside out and pinned our hole shut, we're going to sew along this edge and top stitch with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, we're going to work on the pleats. To do the pleats, when I first started this, I used this guide I found on joann's.com. And basically, you're making a mark every 1.5 inches. So I have 1.5, 3, and 4.5. And then at each of those marks, I go up 1/2 inch, like that. And I did that already on this face mask. So here's our 1.5 inch, and here's the 1/2 inch above it. So to show you how to do a pleat, we're going to go to the 1/2 inch pin that's stuck farther in, and we're going to fold up right there to where that pin is at the bottom of the fold. And I'm going to iron this to make a nice fold. Then after that, we're gonna see where this pin is, and we're gonna fold down right there to where that pin is at the top. And then we're gonna iron to make a nice crease as well. And you're gonna repeat this method for the other 2 pleats, right here and right here. And by the end of it, you'll be ready to sew over it, and you're almost done. Now that we've finished pinning all 3 pleats, we're gonna do the final step and sew. All we're gonna do is sew 1/8 of an inch along the edge, and then we're gonna do another seam, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So that way we have 2 seams that are 1/4 inch apart. Here is the final product. After sewing several of these throughout the past few days, I've learned some tips. The first one is that elastic is in short supply these days. I ended up asking a few neighbors to donate some. Also, I've heard that you can use girls' headbands or hairbands. The next thing I did was I used a walking foot on my sewing machine. It helped provide extra stability because the fabric can get pretty thick. Also, after making several of these, I didn't have to use the pattern anymore, and I could just eyeball it when sewing it. So, when you guys are out there making these, I'd love for you to post a picture in the comments, and thanks for watching!